Hi, my name's David. For this week's Mustad Facebook Friday, I thought I would share with you a modification that I've been asked for one of my clients' horses. Harry, who's been diagnosed with a couple of problems. He has arthritic changes in his hocks, and he also has mild proximal suspensory desmitis. So there's two elements to this modification. The first part that I've been asked for is what's became widely known as a suspensory shoe, which is basically just a wider section across the toe. So there's a few different methods that you can use for this. What I've chosen to do is just to take a piece of a rasp and just sit it on the toe here and jump weld that into place, and that's going to really expand the width of the toe here. So what I've done is I've just taken a rasp and I've just ground the scarfing on there, and I've marked it 2 centimetres, and I've just cut that off, and this is what I'm left with. I'll just pop a shoe in the fire now to get going. What's going to happen when I weld this here though is the shoe's going to get rounder around the toe. So once this toe becomes thicker through here, or the section becomes broader, it's going to become difficult to make the toe tighter. So I want to get this, first job is to make that tighter so it's going to fit the foot, and then I'm going to flux this up in order to weld my piece on. Pop this in the fire first. So I'm going to do this first stage here in my workshop, and the second stage, which is going to be the lateral support, the lateral extension, I'm going to do with the horse. Reason being is because I prefer to get the exact size right, so I'm probably going to want to shorten this check a little bit before I start double fullering to make the extension, and more than likely I'm going to want to reduce the length of the inside. I want to get the size perfect. So as I said, first job is tighten the toe up a little bit because it's going to expand, and get this ready to weld on. Not quite there yet. Put this up. So I'm just going to get it hot and just put a little dust and a flux on there. I'm going to set this piece on and put it back in the fire just for the rasp to come up to temperature. And I'm going to put a little bit more flux in, then back in to get it to the welding temperature. What I've also done is just cleaned the surface that I'm welding onto, just to roughen it a little bit, because the rasp is pretty smooth if it's still clean. If it was rusty, you would want to grind that off as well. Now that's just going to help it grip a little bit, but otherwise it's going to slide around quite a bit when I'm setting it up. Should be good now. So first stage is just push this toe in a little bit. Just pull these out a touch. Just give it a little clean. Just a very light dusting of flux on here. Doesn't need much really. And then I'll just set my piece up. So I'm using the corners of my toenails to line this up. And depending on the size of or sort of how wide you want that to be, will determine how much of the rasp you want to put on. I've done a few of these now, and for this size, about 2 centimetre works out pretty good. So that just about lines up. I'll get another go though when I bring that out the fire. So that's overlapping a little, which is fine because once that all welds, that'll come out to meet the corner of the shoe. It doesn't actually matter that much if it does, but it would be nice just for aesthetics if that sort of matched that nicely. So I'll just put that in the fire now just to bring that up to temperature to flux it. So be kind of careful just to leave a little bit of the heel sticking out just so that I can catch that without disturbing the weld too much. Doesn't need to be very hot at this stage, it's just to bring it up to temperature to get some flux to stick to it really. Okay, I'm happy with how that lines up now, so next I might just touch it back a tiny bit. Okay, that's fine. Just a little bit of flux in there now. You don't need much, just to cover the edges really. So you want to have thought out how you're going to weld this before you bring it out. So I want to weld this on here. It's comfortable for me to hit. I can work my way around the scarves there. So I'm left-handed, that works for me. So if you're right-handed, you might want to choose somewhere else. That might work for you, or you might want to, you know, choose on this part of the anvil, whichever's going to work for you. You have to have it thought out before you start, so that you don't come out and then go, where am I going to go? By that time, you've lost your temperature and it's probably just going to ping off. It's not going to be warm enough to weld, so it's important to have thought this process through. That applies to anything. Forging wise, it's important to have thought about what you're going to do before you bring it out, rather than thinking about it when it's there. So what I'm looking for is the flux to sort of bubble and run and look fluid, and also probably more importantly is both pieces of metal to be similar temperature, or the same temperature I should say. So when I bring this out, I'm just going to work across it. I'm just going to tap, 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 and then I'll just start working in my scarves in the first heat. Second heat, I'll repeat the process and then just flatten it to finish. So there's no rush at this point, just bring it out kind of careful. And just tap, 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 and then just get these scarves spinned in now. Really, I'm just working these scarves in for aesthetics, really. The horse ain't going to mind what that looks like, but I think having a bit of pride in your work is a good thing. The client's paying for it, so if it looks good for them, they're happy too. So now I'm going to just drag this surface down to meet the side of the rash. So I'm just going to come in here with my round face. Just keep pulling that out until it matches the rasp. It's kind of like deep seating. You can see that's came out and matched the rasp now. So the next stage is just to come back out and just pin this in again and just flatten off, and that's your bit done really. Ready for the next stage at the horse. A little bit more flux. Just flux in there a little. See, that's expanded a fair bit already, so when I finish this off, we're going to have a ton of width there. Probably should have checked my gas before I did this, but we've just about got enough to get this done. clean all that excess flux off. Okay, so that's that stage pretty much done. I can just clean up with a file around these edges of my scarf. There's not really much to do. Okay, so that's the first stage done. We've got a load of wood there to provide some protection to the suspensory ligament while it's working on a surface. So the next stage, as I said, is going to be with the horse. We'll check the size, grind this up to the right size and add some fullering to create our lateral support. Okay, so the next stage at the horse. Right, we're here with Harry for the second part of his modification. We've done the first part in my workshop, the proximal suspensory desmitis part of the modification. Next stage is the lateral extension portion. I'm going to get the shoe off, we'll get the shoe to the correct size, and then we'll get it in the fire and make some double fillering to create the extension. First off, we'll get the shoe off and have a little look. Right, Harry. So we've had it pretty wet here for what feels like forever. So this is what happens, we get the sole washed out and mud gets stuck underneath the shoe here and kind of erodes the wall, so we've got to be careful when we're trimming that we don't dip down into this. So I'll do a little bit of trimming and then we'll try the shoe on and see how we are for size. Looks like we're going to have to shorten this up a little bit, shorten this check before we start colouring. Less is more with knife work in the west of Scotland because we do have so much rain. He's been in box rest for a little while, so he's not as bad as what he has been previously. This has been from previously before he was lame. Frogs wise, it doesn't look pretty, but if we try and make that pretty, you kind of get into trouble. So we just really want to take off any little rags and then leave it alone. I wouldn't touch that now in my everyday work. So what I'm looking at trim wise, I'm looking at this sole plane in the centre here. In my mind, that's where the base of the or the solar surface of the P3 is. So I want to have my wall around this portion in the same plane as that. And when I come back through the heels, I look at the commissure depths. So it's slightly deeper here than it is here, which is why he's going to need some of this lateral support here on the outside. He doesn't need much of an extension, just behind this quarter here, just to fill this area below his coronary band. When you've got this situation going on, you've got to be careful you don't dip in here with your rasp. So you're better moving up towards that. There's some flare here, so we just push that off, create an edge, and when we take the foot forward, we can just follow that edge to flare dress. Really, I'm just checking for flat here. Again, more from looking at the depths here and the plane here than I do from what we call eye lining. I'm just really looking to make sure that's flat. It's pretty flat, I'm happy with that. So I'll just check my size now. So yeah, that's came in a little bit. So by the time I straighten this, the back end of this heel here, to shorten this check, I want to keep that cover. And I've got quite a lot to shorten off this inside. Okay, so I'll get that on the grinder, get it in the fire, and then I'll finish the dorsal wall, this flare dressing, when they're in the fire. Yeah, that should be good. By the time that's fitted, that'll be about the right length, covering the buttress. And by the time I've added my additional fillering, that's going to come right round and fill into there. Really where I want to be is about there and there. So that should work out pretty nice. So we'll get that in the fire and finish off the foot. It doesn't have much to do, but when the horse are being shod every 6 weeks, then there's no need to take the foot forward and really strip it every time. The foot's just going to get weaker and weaker and weaker on you. Unless you're in an area where you get a ton of growth, that is, but here we get pretty normal growth, and you know, there's not much to do in the toe there. If anything, he's maybe dragging that a little bit, so we want to be quite conservative there. Really just following in this edge that I've made there. Start at the bottom and work up. All right. This build up of grease on here's through Claire's efforts, Harry's owner. She's very diligent, she's constantly putting hoof dressing on there, so I think we'll leave that on for her because it took her quite a while to get it there. That's just protecting the horn as it grows down. Keep it supple. I've got both shoes in the fire here, but I'll just get one. I'll get both of the modifications done, and then I'll just set one aside. This one needs a little bit less than the other. I'll just set this one aside and just finish one foot. Start the second run now. Try and pick up the original fillering. Okay, so that's it mapped out. We'll just have another heat just to finish that off. That's alright. To make sure you come at least to that check with your fillering line, because otherwise you just get a bulge in front of it, it doesn't look too pretty. These can be as close to each other as you like. It's important to keep them near the inner edge of the web. If you get too near the outside edge and you want to add more with beveling off with your hammer, it gets kind of thin and the beveling crosses over into the fillering. Typical Scotland, here comes the rain. Just move some tools in. Authentic farrier in Scotland. Say in Scotland, if you don't like the weather, hang about for 5 minutes, you'll get something else. Certainly very true in the West. So just set that one aside now, and we'll just concentrate on the other one. Yeah, that's enough for now. If I want to get more, I can filler it a little bit harder, and also I can force this off with my hammer here, but I would rather wait and see how it is in the foot first. And have a little look at the foot, remind myself for the shape. So when I was making the toe modification, I deliberately tightened the toe up. I think it's going to need a little bit more. I was concerned that when I put the insert in, or welded the piece of the rasp into the toe, it was going to widen the toe a little bit. So that was well worth doing, because if you can't get the toe closed up, then you either have to set the shoe back underneath the foot too much, or your toenails are going to be going into the wrong part, and the next time you come back the foot's going to be pretty badly broken up. It's almost there. I just need to angle the clip on the inside a little bit more, and I just need a little bit more, just right there. You can actually see it in the shoe, it's just lacking right there. On the foot it's good, we just need a little bit more, so I'm going to use my hammer just to force that out and finish it off. Okay, so I just got a heat now just to finish forcing that off. Sunshine. So the thought process behind the more significant problem for Harry is the arthritic changes in his hocks. The proximal suspensory desmitis is secondary to that, but the concern is when you put an extension on there, it's going to hold the back half of his foot on top of the surface and pitch the toe into the ground when he's on a soft surface. So really that's there as a protection for the suspensory ligament, because if that was allowed to pitch in, it's going to increase the pressure increase the pressure on the suspensory ligament. So that's grumbling along beside the bone spavin, so we really don't want that to get any worse, so that's pretty precautionary. So you just pull this corner out and then I can just blend that in. But if I did that at the start and I didn't need it, I would have to grind that off, so it's better to wait and clean up my flooring a little bit now. Fix this clip a little bit. Come on, Harry. Okay, so I'm fairly happy with that. It's covering the buttresses that I wanted to cover. Extension's covering his coronary band. This is the kind of line we were looking at really. I wanted to cover top to bottom. Clip fit's good. I'm pretty fussy about my clip fit because in farrier that's your clip fit and your nailing and finishing really your shop window, because otherwise, you know, what else have you got? That's the part that the client sees, so it's important to get that looking as good as possible. When he does resume work, he's going to work quite a bit in the roads, and there's not many places you can go here that you don't have to cross tarmac, and he does slip a bit, so although it's not ideal to have tungsten pins when you're dealing with remedial work, it's also important that he stays upright in the road for the client's benefit as well. So, you know, it's a compromise, so he gets some tungsten pins in these as well. There's a lot of debate about where you should and shouldn't put pins, but I prefer to have them pretty near the back of the foot. In particular, if it's something that's got a lateral extension, I want it as far out the way of where it's going to wear as possible. Now, your wear area is going to be across here, so if you put pins there, then you're going to start interfering with that. Again, everybody has opinions on this, well, that's mine. Just got to varnish a little bit, just box for that part that was missing the foot. I'll just leave that alone, my hammer boxing. So that should be that. I've just put a little bit of safer on there, just ever so slightly. He's also, I think he's maybe dragging him a touch, but not much at all, so that's just giving a bit of clearance. He'll sort that out for himself when he starts wearing that. We should be able to nail these on with Mustad Slim 5s. They fit them really nicely. Okay, so I'm happy with that. My boxing's nice and safe. He's got his extension. He's got his suspensory modification. Just a little sharp edge there, I just want to take that off. Right, Harry. Right, Harry boy. So with clinching, I think it's how you set up your clinches is important. If you set the nails up before you cut them, so they're coming out at least at 90 degrees, you're more likely to have consistent clinches. Flatten the tops. Okay, so that was pretty much what we set out to achieve. Fairly happy with that. We can, if you look now, the coronary band's been completely supported by the extension now. I remember when I was in the early years at college, Pat Balfour took the class for a day, and I always remember him telling me that if you stand above a horse's leg, beside its leg, you should never lose sight of the heel of the shoe. And I've always remembered that, and I think that's something that I try to bring into my work all the time. If you lose sight of the shoe, then he considers that tight, and I think that's probably about right. So thanks for that. Thanks for watching. Look forward to seeing who's on next week. I'm not sure who it is, but I'm sure it'll be good to watch. So once again, thanks to Mustad for sponsoring these Friday evenings, and I hope everybody stays safe, and I'll see you soon. Take care, bye.